Yes, everybody, welcome back to the Irish Hotspur. And in this video, we are going to be doing the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're going to be giving our player rankings for all of their Spurs players so far this season. Only about a quarter of the way through, you could basically say, through this Premier League as well as Europa League, all the competitions this season. And so I think we're just going to do a little check in while we're a little bored during this international break. So, everybody, if you can for us, smash that like button, get into the comments below, and let us know your thoughts on this. It's not going to be too scientific or anything. We're just going to be kind of asking each other which of these players fall in which of these categories: good, okay, bad, ugly, and then NA, non applicable as well. I think it's pretty easy to determine which ones are which. Let's get into it, Davo, right?
Yeah, look, let's get into it. Let's sort of see how our players have gone on so far this season. Who's doing well? Who needs to do better? Let's go.
Okay. And do we start with, maybe we might as well, probably not by mistake, but maybe it was, Radu Dragishin's over at the far left, someone who's definitely been under some conversations recently. Might as well start spicy, Dave. You'd think that maybe he was kind of in the NA category, but then he got a red card against Karabag. He's not really taken advantage of many of his chances this season. I think this is our first ugly.
100%. Look, I don't want to hear any more sort of murmurs about he needs more game time. He's played 9 games this season. That's already a substantial amount of the 15, 20 odd games that we've already played. So he's been really poor so far this season. No doubt about it. Ugly.
Ben
He's not ugly
Davies,
looking, but his performance has been
oh,
ugly.
he's brilliant looking, but his performances on the pitch certainly have been ugly looking. Ben Davies, on the other hand, weirdly, Dave, you and I, we are not by any means Ben Davies' protectors. We're by no means, his biggest fans. I'm going to say this again. I can't really say too much that Ben Davies has actually done wrong so far this season. He's not blown me out of the water, but he's also not really given me much to complain about. In fact, he's given me more to praise than probably for me to complain about. I'm going to put it in probably good for Ben Davies.
I think that's a bit of an overstretch. I think he's like you still got to remember he's been on the periphery of the squad, but when called upon, he's been reliable. I would go okay.
Let's go for okay. Let us know, everybody, if Ben Davies deserves to be in the good category. Now, Romero. This is a funny one. Going through these defenders here, Dave. Romero, I wouldn't give
Ugly.
it ugly.
Okay.
I'm in between probably okay and bad is where I'm at. I think he didn't have necessarily a great season, because if he did, I don't think we would be analyzing some of the defensive errors that he has made, being kind of a bit asleep at the back post, or, the one with Danny Welbeck where he just didn't, really seem to track the runner. These type of games where just for some reason Romero just doesn't seem too switched on defensively. I do think, though, we have been reminded, though, of the drastic difference in quality between Radu Dragishin and Christian Romero.
Mm.
But by Christian Romero's own standards, Dave, maybe his own very high standards, I'd say okay or bad, to be honest.
I think in possession he's been good. He's been very good, but out of possession, I think he's been found wanting. The first run of 5 games, you could put nearly directly down to him. Some of the goals we've conceded, I would put him in bad.
Yeah, I think it's just for the defensive errors this season. I think he might just have to go down there. And if he were to improve on those, I think he could easily find himself up higher up in
Mm.
that good category. Lucas Bergval. Now, this again feels harsh, Dave, but I might have to go between bad and ugly for him. I just don't think he's taken advantage of many of the chances he was given. Wonderful preseason. Looked like he was going to get a ton of minutes from the get go with how good his preseason was. But you could say any of the opportunities that he's had since then just hasn't really fully taken them. Some games he played all right, and then other games he just didn't played really poor, actually.
Oh, look, in pre-season he lit it up, but in pre-season there's no one that gets tight to you. There's no real press on you, no real tackle, and he looked really good in possession. But the games that he has had, he hasn't done too well. I would put him in bad. I think ugly is a bit of a stretch considering he's only had about 4 or 5 games this season. But the game time he has had, he hasn't done too much with.
And now Brennan Johnson, Bernaldo, as much as, again, I think I have my criticisms, I think he still has some areas that he could definitely improve on, especially in the creativity department. I think he does such a good job at being at the right place at the right time to score and to put the ball in the back of the net. I just think he's one of those forwards that doesn't really do a whole lot for his teammates in terms of creating chances and opportunities on a regular basis. Still, for me, needs to improve on taking on his fullback on a regular basis, trying to get, into the game, trying to help his teammates out by linking play together. He just seems to be the guy that's kind of at the end of moves than really at the start of moves type of player.
Mm.
But then again, he's been able to put in the goals when called upon for the most part this season. I think it's a good season for Brennan, or I'd go okay if you wanted to judge it a bit more, in a detailed manner. But I think good is probably about right, Dave.
I think overall he's probably been one of our better players this season in terms of scoring goals and helping put points on the board for sure. Don't get me wrong, I definitely still air your concerns about his creativity. He doesn't provide a lot for others, and I'd also argue he's at fault along with Porro for some of the goals conceded at the back post this season. But in general, going forward, he's output a lot of points on the board, so you would say good. He had that game. Don't forget, he had a 6 game run where he scored on 6 goals on the trot. So it's hard to
Mm.
put him anywhere else.
Now, similar vein of logic, not really in the creativity area, but for Dominic Solanke, maybe just sort of in the goals area. I just feel like, the guy doesn't get a ton of service, but maybe with some of the chances that he does get every now and again, he doesn't always take them. Exhibit A would be at the end there towards Ipswich Town,
Yeah.
where he actually could have grabbed an equalizer, Dominic Solanke, for us, and he wasn't able to. Don't get me wrong, though, I don't think he's given a ton of chances on a regular basis. That being said, I just feel like that's an area he could technically still improve on. I think he needs to be still that bit more clinical, that bit more ruthless in front of goals. But every other part of his game has been pretty tremendous for us. The work rate, hold up play, bringing others into play. He's been pretty much what Ange, I think, has been needing in that forward line. I think similar logic to Brennan Johnson, Dave. Good, but obviously areas to improve as well.
Yeah, I think, look, if you were to judge him on his goals alone, you would put okay, but I think his all round performances have been very good for Tottenham Hotspur, so good,
Pop Matasar. Now, I think in the
good.
get go from the preseason, he was kind of a little bit lower down. We were thinking maybe he wasn't having the best starts, but now in the past couple of weeks, he's put in amazing performance after amazing performance, practically taken away Madison's spot from him unexpectedly as well, considering Madison was starting. Just from, remind you, what was it against Manchester United, one of the starting midfielders. Then a couple of weeks later, Pop Matasar back into the starting 11, looking like someone that would be very hard to displace. I think you give Sarr a good season.
I think you have to, Jack. Even earlier on in the season, there was never criticisms about his work rate, his ability to go around, win the ball, and stuff like that, or what he does defensively for Tottenham. The big question was, can he add to his game going forward? Because he finds himself in forward position so often, and he's done that. So you can only put him in good.
Yeah. And in the case of Basuma now, Dave, I don't know if you can go as far as ugly. Can you put
I'm going to
okay
say
or
bad.
bad?
I'm going to say bad. Look, I think he gets a lot of praise for the effort. And judge from years gone by, we shouldn't really take effort as a given because of some of the squads we've seen in years gone by. But there's a difference between putting in effort and actually playing well. He gives away the ball far too much on the football pitch for my liking, takes far too much risks for than what I
Yeah.
would prefer my number 6 to take. Yeah, he's got a couple of goals getting up on the edge of the box. For the overall, I think he's been bad though.
And on to Kulisevsky, I think this is an easy one. Probably been our best player this season. Just say though, it's not like he's been brilliant in every game. Crystal Palace definitely did not have a good one, and then just recently against Ipswich Town, I would say he didn't really show up in that game either. But I think it's just for me simply best player that we've had so far this season, Dave. I mean, would you disagree with that? Has Kulusevski been the best player this season so far?
Look, even the greats have an off day, Jack, but for the majority, he's been our most consistent player. We actually should have a separate category for Kulu, but we'll put him in good.
I'm gonna put him at good. The reason I only went with good as well is just because I'm like, do you really call someone having a great season when you're only like a quarter way in?
Mm.
It seems like maybe you get caught for being a little exaggerative there. Timo Werner. Now
It's not a
he's
debate. It's
improved in
ugly.
the past couple of
No,
weeks, but I think this has been ugly or bad. I might go for bad. I
no.
don't know if it's been
I'm go-
ugly.
no, I'm gonna go ugly. Look, don't get me wrong. He scored there against Man City, but for the large part either side of that, he's been found wanting in terms of simple balls into the box. It's simple chances. He's had as many, if not better, chances than Brennan Johnson and Dominic Solanke combined, and he still managed to miss most of them. It's not a debate. It's ugly.
Well, it's certainly the finishing has been ugly in the final moments. Wilson Odebear,
And
NA,
injured.
can you judge him at all? Like good game against Everton, and then a poor game against Newcastle, and then apart from that, it's just nothing to really speak of. Yeah,
Nothing to
NA.
speak of at all, Jack. NA.
Yeah.
He's been injured for far too long this season. He's been injured more than what he's been available.
Now with Vicario, Dave, this is a funny one. You felt like maybe in the beginning of the season he looked a little shaky, did not really give us that sense of confidence. For the most part, I'm kind of back on good terms with Vicario. I think he's actually been all right for us this year. Hard to know if you would give it a good. Maybe you just start out with an okay for him because like he still worries you every now and again. Questions of leadership as well. I think he's tried to step up in that department, but I think we could still do better. What do you make of Vicario this year?
Do you know, I think it's harsh. I would put him in good. I think for the large part of this season, I think he's been good. I think he doesn't get enough credit for some of the saves he actually makes during games.
Yeah, that's
And the
true.
reason why is because he actually makes them routinely. We take it for granted, actually, the amount of times this guy pulls off worldly saves. Yeah, there's been one or two hiccups, but the biggest question was coming into this season, is he going to improve from set pieces in on top of his 6 yard box? And from
I
what
think
I've
we are
seen, he's
seeing
coming out to
improvement.
start trying to claim them. So I think it's been a good season in general.
I think he is improving. I think he still has a long way to go, but I think we can
Yeah.
see signs of improvement. Absolutely. Now, on to Richarlison. Do you go NA or do you give him ugly? Because, right, once again, the injury is just continuing to haunt him. And it's not like it's the same type of thing with Odebear, who only just came to the team.
Mm. Do you know what, Jack? I would put ugly because I think he had a massive point to prove this season, but again, he just hasn't been available. I put it in N8, but I think we all know Richarlison's time is probably coming to an end at Tottenham.
I'm going to just override Dave here. I'm going to leave it in ugly just because he really did need to step up for us and be available. Unfortunately, he just can't. Not always his fault, but just the way it is.
Mm.
Destiny Udogi. Now, funny one. Bit of a
I'll
mixed
take
one,
the
kind of
lead
like
on this.
Romero. Take it, Dave.
I'll take the lead on this one. Do you know what? I'm a big fan of Destiny Adoji. I think he has potential to be one of the best left backs in terms of defensively, in world football if he can continue to progress in the right manner. I am going to make a bit of an excuse for him here, though. He did come back off of a long injury layoff after his surgery. He didn't come back to the
True.
first game before preseason, and he has had to use the first few weeks of the season to try and gather that fitness, that momentum. But overall, his performances have been bad, but they've been bad because of a reason, in my opinion, not just that he's been piss poor.
Interesting. Dave's gone for bad. I would sort of put it around okay for me personally, but I could see why a lot of people
You can
felt that way
overrule me if
because
you want.
defensively, it's a bit similar to Romero. Defensively, been very much found wanting.
Yeah.
And Archie Gray. Now, okay.
Do you know what? I would go okay, Jack. I think from what I've seen of him, right, he's played at left back and right back. And don't get me wrong, defensively sometimes he's left wanting. But what I don't think is taken into account, yes, he played fullback at Leeds, but he didn't play it in this system, this high line and stuff like that. So there is that adaptation period. But in possession, I've actually been pleasantly.
Yeah, he's solid.
I'd go okay.
All right. All right. Dave's gone okay. I think he's just been very, very classy in possession. Now, Rodrigo Bentancur, for me, I think we just
Yeah.
found out just before recording, he's about to get the 7 match ban. Wonder if you put it in ugly after that. But Bentancur, I think he's actually been pretty good when he's been playing this year. I think he's shown to be actually a better number 6 than Basuma, at least so far. I'd give him good, Dave. I think he's been one of our better players, especially in the past few weeks.
Yeah, and I think, the fact that Postecoglou has selected him, 8 or 9 times in that deeper role more than he has Basuma, I think sort of settles the argument who he prefers in there. I think he's had a good season in general, probably outside of Kulu. I would argue probably our
Yeah.
standout player. I think he's been brilliant. In terms of the 7 game ban, just quickly, I think it's the FA over reaching their jurisdiction. It happened on international duty. It's up to for the international bodies to sort out. I don't like that he's getting a 7 game ban for that personally.
Mm.
When it's nothing to do with the Premier League.
I wouldn't say he's really had too many bad games that you can even think of too. Like
No, you
maybe
didn't.
there's been games that he's been better than others, but can you really even point out a game where he actually was poor? I'm not sure if I
No.
can. James Madison, almost the definition of ugly, kind of like Radu Dragic, ugly, ugly season for Madison, losing his spot with Ange. Had one little period there where he was playing really well. I actually don't think he's played that badly, to be honest, this
Mm,
season. But you just look at his standing with Ange, you look at the lack of the playing time, it just feels like it's an ugly season for Madison. It's a strange one, Dave. It's almost worth a recording on its own,
mm.
which we will be doing.
Do you know what? For me, Jack, It's a hard one because I think going forward, he's got okay numbers. I do expect better out of Madison because I hold him in that sort of caliber of player. But he's actually forward of par, had an okay season, but it's very quickly turning ugly over the last week or two. He's been missing. He hasn't really been selected for any of Tottenham's biggest games this season. So it's hard to know what to do because I do think putting it in ugly is harsh. I think putting it in bad is harsh.
Yeah,
I
because he
think
hasn't
putting it
played
in
that.
okay is right. But I still maintain defensively, that's why he's not being picked.
I'm going to leave it an ugly just because of where his standing is clearly with Ange Postecoglou. Maybe some people think we're reading too much into it. I don't think we are, and we're going to put a video out on that, so feel free to watch it. But I think he's played actually okay this season. It's just by Madison's own standards, he would think that he's going to be played in these bigger
Mm,
games, and he just hasn't been. So clearly something's wrong. Clearly something a little ugly is going on
mm.
behind the scenes. Mickey Van de Ven, I'd say okay to good. I mean, it's not been as brilliant as he was last year,
I
but
don't know.
yeah,
I
you
think he
think he
has
gets
been
away
good.
with it sometimes, Dave, because he's just, the Rolls Royce, of the back line. You think he gets away with a mistake or two every now and again?
Yeah, to a certain degree, I think that's true. But you know what, Jack? On reflection, and again, this is just based off the CNI test. We haven't bothered going into stats and stuff like that. But I think, from my recollection, the only two games where I was really disappointed in him is one against Newcastle, but Isaac seems to do that to him every season, and B against Brighton. I thought he was very, very poor. But they're the only really two bad games where I think he's been really, really poor. Apart from that, I think he's been good. Look at that run against Man United. He contributes, he helps going forward and stuff as well. So I'll put a good season.
I think the games where he was poor was Crystal Palace, where he made that mistake and the touch that he took, and
Fair, yeah.
the mistake. And then I remember
Forgot about
against
that.
Brighton. I think against Brighton he played a part in some
Mm.
of the goals that we ended up
So
conceding
three.
as well. But I think against Everton it was Radu Dragusin that played, or sorry, not Everton, Newcastle. I think it was Radu Dragusin who played against Newcastle.
Was not
So
Radu Dragusin and Van de Ven, though?
could have
Maybe
been.
I'm
Maybe
wrong.
it was. Ah, geez. It just shows how little Dave and I know. So we'll scratch that one. We'll go Mickey Van de Ven. Good to
Yeah,
Dave,
I'd put
but
him in
sounds
good.
like that wasn't our strongest of answers. Pedro Porro. Um,
Do you know what,
bad
Jack?
like Destiny take the lead, Dave. I don't know what to say with Pedro.
I love the postman. I really like him. However, going forward, he has not contributed the way I think he can contribute on a regular basis going forward. When you look at someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold, for instance, I think he has that ability, but doesn't showcase it enough this season. And I think defensively, he's been piss poor. I think back post goals are a continuous problem for the guy, whether he's making the right choice or not to follow the runner. Simple communication. He's 25, 26 years of age now. That should be a given. So for me, I'm actually going to put him in a bad season.
Wow. I mean, you put Destiny there, so it's not been the greatest from both the fullbacks defensively. Now, Sonny, I think we know Sonny can do better. He's had some injuries, though. It's not
It's
been,
been
he's
okay.
not been consistently available the whole year. I think it's been okay, Dave.
Do you know what? If you hold it up to Sonny's usual standards, it's ugly, right? He hasn't contributed anywhere near as much as he usually does right now. But when you compare it to the rest of the squad and the output, I think yes, I think it's been okay. I don't think he'd be happy with it, with the injury sort of curtailing it, like you said.
Yeah, I just think the injuries for me give me that slight bit excuse for him. Jet Spence,
Interesting.
non-applicable. You could say good because the only time that he has been on the pitch, he saved Ange Postecoglou's job. But so,
I think non-applicable is fair, and I think you're spot on. He did save Postecoglou's job around that Coventry game. But I'm thinking if you're Jed Spence, has it
feels
been
ugly.
okay for you so far? Because you were due to be sold. You end up sneaking in, being kept around. You've got a couple of bits of game to get yourself in under Ange Postecoglou. And he's been kept around against all odds. So I think if you're Jed Spence, you probably go, it's okay. But I think from when you're looking at an output point of view, you're definitely right in NA.
Mm. Fraser Forster, I'd say ugly.
Probably.
Ugly. He's not looked good for me. I think Coventry, he looked terrible. Azad Alkmaar looked pretty good. And then against Galatasaray, looked terrible again for me, in my opinion. So I think we have our mind made up on Fraser. It looks like he's just past his due date when it comes to being a Spurs backup keeper. Mikey Moore, I think you have to give it good or okay, the fact that he's already gotten his minutes so far this year.
Do you know what, Jack? When you look at it from a 17-year-old's point of view, has so much work to try and do to get in there, and the minutes that he has been given, I'd argue he's took. That's why many bad fans are calling for him to come off the bench and get more minutes. So it's from his point of view, it's got to be a good season.
And then Will Lancashire, last but certainly not least, I think he's also gotten his minutes. Maybe got the red card, but he got his goal. Like, he's been available when he wants to be. I don't know. I'd say okay or good as well.
Do you know, I think from Will Lancashire's point of view, he'd probably be hoping, even at this early stage, to have more minutes because of the Europa League games and stuff. And he did get sent off, but he also scored one. I'm going to let you make the final call. I'm okay with either, good or okay.
I'm
I
going to
think if
say
you're looking at it from an academy perspective, breaking through into the first team, you go, yeah, so far it's going according to plan, good. But if you're looking at it from a contribution point of view, probably okay.
I'd give it a good just because he's already won out from Dane Scarlett, Alejo Valise, other people on the team. He's took that position from them and could be taking it from Richarlison. You never know.
Fair.
So just has to be patient. Well, everybody, that's our good, the bad, the ugly, our player ratings so far this season. Let us know yours in those comments below. Let us know what you might have disagreed with at any point or what you might have agreed with. Smash the like button for us, and we'll see you next time. Come on, you Spurs. In the big end,
Come
we
on, you
trust.
Spurs.
We never stop. See you, everybody.
Never stop.